Hey everyone, I am Gabe Smith, CCXP. I am the content manager and associate director for the CXPA, or the Customer Experience Professionals Association. I am so excited to be with you again. I look forward to these conversations with our fantastic guests every time that we have one of these broadcasts. But also, I look forward to the conversations that we get to have with you, our viewers, throughout the broadcast. So I'm so excited to know that you are joining us today, that you've carved out some time, whether it's morning, afternoon, whether you're your workday, whether you're ending your workday. I'm glad you're here and would always love to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure to drop a note in the comments. Let us know where you are watching from today. Excited to see you and excited to interact with you in the comments. So, our guest today is Daniel Ord, CCXP. Dan is the founder and the director of OmniTouch International, where he has spent the last 20 years helping and inspiring people to deliver great customer and employee experience. Dan and his team offer more than 25 industry leading workshops, including CX management, CCXP certification prep, contact center management, quality assurance, employee experience, customer service across channels, coaching, project management, leadership, culture, really covering the gamut of the customer ecosystem. So, Dan is also a CXPA recognized training provider. He helps individuals and organizations better understand the CX discipline, as well as helping qualified candidates prepare for their CCXP exam. We're so excited to have Dan with us, and just wanted to welcome a few folks in who are joining us. We have Teresa, who's joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Teresa, great to see you. We have Kuwait joining us. We have Jamil joining us from Amman, Jordan. We have Shveta joining us from Bangalore, India. Hey, Shveta. We have Shayera from Orlando, Florida. We have Mecca joining us from the Czech Republic. Hey, Mecca, great to see you. We have uh, Talemwa joining us from Uganda. Comments are coming in so quickly. We have South Africa, Nigeria, Poland, Dubai, the Adirondack Mountains. Nicole, great to see you. We have Bilal joining us from Pakistan. Phenomenal. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think my favorite part of doing these programs, in addition to these stimulating conversations, is seeing the engagement, the great questions that you all ask from around the world. So love that. A little bit more background on today's guest. I'm going to bring him in here in just a moment. We welcomed Daniel to this program last year to speak on his experiences with helping organizations build a customer centric culture. If you didn't get a chance to view that program, we'll post a link in the comments. But I think that one of Daniel's greatest gifts that's going to be on display today, he's really such a natural storyteller. We're so excited to welcome him back to the program today to discuss a topic that I really hope and think that you're going to find as interesting as I do, which is the role of a mystery shopping program in a modern customer insights program. We're going to talk about this from several angles. And as I said before, this program is really at its best when it's not just a conversation between me and Daniel, but it's a conversation among all of us together. Whether you're in Kenya, whether you're in Ghana, here in the United States, Canada, we want to get your comments in. So be to share your reactions, share your questions, share your observations. We'll do our best to feature as many of those as we can. So, with that, joining us from Germany, so excited to welcome Daniel Ord, CCXP. Welcome, Daniel.
Hi, Gabe. Nice to be here again.
Great to have you here.
Yeah,
Daniel, I shared a little bit more about you in your introduction, but I know that you have a really unique career trajectory. So, would love for you to share that with the viewers in your own words, a little bit more about your career arc and how you got into this field of mystery shopping.
sure. That's a very fair place to start. So, like a lot of people, I got into serving customers completely by accident. For me, I got into the contact center industry. It was 1990, and I was the VP of finance for a US catalog operation based in LA, Los Angeles. And the VP of operations had resigned. And an hour later, the CEO called me up and said, would you like her job? I said, sure, why not? By the way, I've learned say yes more often than you say no. And I really went straight from VP of finance to VP of operations, boom, overnight. And I've been serving customers ever since. And in 1998, I ended up moving to Singapore. And the first couple of years I was in Singapore, I worked for a contact center outsourcer. And what happened is one of our clients was TNT, the shipping company. And TNT had approached us, the company, and said, we'd like to do an Asia Pacific wide mystery shopper program. We want to benchmark the quality of our contact center service across 9 different countries. So the CEO there in Singapore came to me and said, Dan, I'd like you to run it. And I basically said, what's mystery shopper? I had no idea. But his point was, you can handle the client. Don't worry, you'll figure it out as you go. Well, the good news is the project went really, really well. I learned an awful lot. And I think, Gabe, it went well because I've always been a fan of quality. And at heart, so much of Mystery Shopper is really about the quality of what a customer really goes through. That's when you look at it, it's what does a real customer really go through? And this project was very successful. TNT came back and said, number one, you helped us improve our service delivery. Number two, we were able to cross-share best practices across 9 countries because, we were everywhere from India to Hong Kong to Singapore to Malaysia, Indonesia. And all of a sudden you'd find out the folks in India were doing something incredible and we could cross-share that. And so they got a lot out of it. So when I set up my own company in 2001, still in Singapore, by the way, we set up 2 divisions, an education division to run workshops, but we also set up a research division, and we've been doing Mystery Shopper for 21 years now around the world. So a lot of the stories I'm going to share today come from our real world experience working with different clients doing Mystery Shopper.
Yeah,
That's the story.
that is fantastic. Hey, and I set you up in the intro as a storyteller, and so I know that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. Is sort of sharing the stories so that the audience can conceptualize what this is all about. So, can you share a story with that? Can you share, example of a program that really helps exemplify or typify what mystery shopping is all about, so the viewers can sort of grasp if they're like me, who may be coming into this program and not having done a mystery shopping program before.
I think that's a very fair point. And the story I'd like to tell is really what I would call a CX-based mystery shopper. So for those CX people out there and all you CCXPs out there, I bow down to every single one of you. You're going to love this story. So here we are. It's probably about 8 years ago. I get the call from the GM of a Singapore 5-star hotel. And he calls us up in the office and says, Dan, I've heard about you guys. I hear you do mystery shopper. We'd like you to do a mystery shopper for us. And so I said what I always say, which is, what kind of mystery shopper would you like? And he said, well, we don't really need you to come in and tell us if the floors are clean. And we don't really need you to come in and tell us if the front desk people are nice. We don't even need you to come in and tell us if the rooms are well maintained. You know why? Because our management team does that. Now, when I heard him say that, I was already super impressed because he said, that's why we have managers and supervisors. They do that. What we want to do is a brand values mystery shopper. So my ears are really perking up at this point. And I said, sir, can you tell me more? And he said, well, look, a year ago, we brought in a service consultant and she worked with us. And we came up with what we CX people would call a CX vision. And their CX vision was based on the acronym for the word service. So S stood for something, E stood for something, R stood for something, and so on. So he said, we've come up with this acronym. I'm going to call it CX Vision because I think that's what it is. And we are really happy with it. And we spent the last year training every single employee in the hotel, from the bellman to the reservations people to the food and beverage people. Everybody's been through a workshop on SERVICE, SERVICE. The reason I want to do a mystery shopper is I want to see if our employees are actually bringing this to life in the work that they do. Talk about high-level strategic thinking. So here's what we did, and I'll share a couple of examples. We literally had to come up with what are called scenarios. A scenario is a bit like being a film director. You have to write a little bit of a script for your mystery shopper and advise them what to say or do. And we had to come up with scenarios that would test, are they letter S? Are they letter E? Are they letter V? And so on. We literally had to come up with 40 different scenarios. Then we engaged mystery shoppers. Now, when you bring in mystery shoppers, you don't bring them in all at one go. We spread people staying in the hotel over a period of 3 or 4 months to do the things I'm about to describe. Let me share 2 scenarios we had the mystery shoppers do. I'm going to focus on the letter S. S stood for seamless. What this hotel said is a guest should be able to ask for anything at any point in the hotel and get what they want. We are not going to push our guests to other departments to get what they need. So we had told our mystery shopper, please do this. When you go down in the morning to the breakfast restaurant and the host or hostess is seating you, tell them your pillows are lumpy. You don't have to be mean or nasty about it. Just say, oh gosh, the pillows in the bed are just so lumpy. Can I give the audience a moment to guess what had happened in every single case by the time our mystery shopper got back to their room after breakfast? I know you know the answer, but I have to give you a moment to think about it. Yeah. And the answer is, I feel like I'm doing an online quiz. Yeah, the pillows got changed in every single case. That's a perfect example of what they call S stands for seamless. I tell the breakfast host, who then works through all the different departments, which obviously included housekeeping, to change the pillows. Let me give you one more just for S. We told the mystery shopper, go by the front desk at about 11:45 a.m. and tell them you're rushing out for a business meeting. You're in the center of town. You have to go out for a business meeting. But could you have a Wagyu beef burger waiting for you in your room? You expect to be back at 2. Now, how many places can you place a room service order at the front desk? Well, not only was the Wagyu beef burger waiting for all 40 mystery shoppers, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, there was a handwritten note from the front desk that said, we hope you had a successful meeting. Oh my gosh. Now, Gabe,
Fantastic.
story after story after story after story like this on all these. So we're at the point now where we're presenting to the board. In those days, you would present everything obviously face to face. So we're in a big meeting room with the GM and the owners of the hotel and so on. And we're telling all these great stories. And then the GM said, Dan, of course, it's wonderful to hear all this, but what could we do better? And I said, sir, you've reached the epitome. And can I tell you what you've done? Number one, you created a CX vision that people can buy into. Now, they didn't call it a CX vision. They called it a service delivery vision, but let's just call it CX vision. You trained everybody in what that vision is and what it means to their job. And can I tell you the part you've done that's incredible? You've got people living it. Because our mystery shopping exercise has proved that your employees, from housekeeping through to the front desk, through to hotels, are complicated ecosystems. Don't be fooled. Talk about a place full of silos. It's full of different silos with everybody focused. To try and get all those people to pull together in the same direction, that was really incredible. And you had asked me once, Gabe, about ROI. This company believes so strongly that their CX vision differentiated them from others that it would make them a preferred hotel in a very competitive market. And they just wanted to make sure SERVICE was being brought to life. Isn't that incredible?
That is fantastic. I
Yeah.
love that. What a great story, and how validating of the work that they had done to instill this customer centric culture. So
Yeah.
that is awesome. We have a comment here from Jamil who
Yep.
says, among different purposes of conducting mystery shopping, I use it to measure the quality of sales and service for my client in the training programs I conduct. Sometimes I do it for the sake of spying on a competitor.
You know what, Jamil? I'm going to actually bring up this thing. A big chunk of our mystery shopper over the business over the years has actually been doing competitor analysis. So I don't think you have to use the word spying. We'll take that word out because that word's a little edgy. And
Right.
I'll probably just do like benchmarking analysis. But I
Yeah.
support that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, Daniel, I know, the CX community, we're interested in making sure that we're operating with a common definition. So I would love to get your thoughts on how do you specifically define a mystery shopper program? What are the parameters of it? And how do you define it in relationship to customer experience?
I think it's a really good question. Um, Let me first share with you that I read something that Annette Franz had written, and this was in 2019. I actually have the article saved in my archives. And as many of you know, Annette was the past board chair of the CXPA. And here's what she wrote in her article, and I'm paraphrasing, but I've got it right. I double checked. She said, if you want to check on the health of CX in an organization, you have two ways you can do it. Way number one is to conduct a maturity benchmark. You go in and you study what level are you at with VOC practices? What level are you at with culture practices? What level are you at with metrics practices? And I think there's a lot of CX consultants out there that do this kind of work. They're going to come in and they're going to study your maturity level. But she wrote the second way you can do this is you could actually conduct a mystery shopper exercise that touches on the channels and touch points a real customer goes through, because that will tell you what a real customer goes through. Now, when I read that, I had like this, Gabe, I called it the Star Trek Vulcan mind meld moment where I was like, oh, singing, because I resonated so much with that statement, because we keep looking at mystery shopper and saying, what does it do? It tells us what customers really go through. Now, I've given you, I think, a formal definition. I'll let you pop that into the, it's probably the only attachment we have for this session, if it's helpful to people. There is how I would teach our clients and our mystery shoppers what mystery shopper is. So I'll let you take a look at that for a moment. We can chit chat about it. So trained mystery shoppers, pre-planned interactions. It's not random.
Yeah.
So for example, when I was describing those scenarios of ordering the Wagyu beef burger or telling the host your pillows were lumpy, that wasn't just what the mystery shopper dreamed up. It's a very scientific approach that we come up with. And I like the word scenario there. And then after the interactions are done, you evaluate them, you score them. Scores often matter. And then there's also some qualitative research that we do as well. And I'll share some examples of that. So
Yeah, that's really great. So less improv, more planned, scripted interactions.
yeah, and can I tell you later on, I think one of the things we talk about are what are some of the success and frankly failure factors. Let me leap directly to a failure factor. Most in-house mystery shopper programs fail because it's very hard to separate yourself. If you're the employee of the company, mystery shopping your own company, you bring a lot of political baggage and biasness to the equation, and it's often is very random. It actually ends up ticking off more people than helping more people. So I'm not a big fan of
Right.
internally run
I,
programs.
I imagine it's hard to divorce the institutional knowledge that you have of the organization and its workings from, the experience of what a real customer would have.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And Gabe, why don't we try and link this a bit to CCXPs out there? Are you ready? You got your pencil sharpened? Because what I want to do is I want to link this definition of mystery shopper to CX data architecture. So we're going back to your CCXP exam.
Mhm.
Here we go. Do y'all remember what descriptive metrics are? A descriptive metric lives in your company's systems or your company's reports, and it tells you what really happened. So your contact center wait times, that really happened. How much a customer reordered from you, that really happens. What TV screens were broken on the flight from Frankfurt to Miami, that really happened. If you're a shipper like TNT or DHL or Federal Express, what packages got shipped late? That really happened. That's called descriptive metrics. Then the next layer, you have perception metrics. I think we're all familiar with what perception metrics are, but I'm still going to say it. Perception metrics come from customer surveys primarily. So that's where I ask customers to rate us, whether that's on a CSAT scale of 1 to 5 or a net promoter scale of 0 to 10, whatever that scale is, that perception metric is truly coming from the voice of the customer. And then the third layer in our data architecture are those outcome metrics. What do customers do as a result of their perception? We all want them to buy more, stay longer, write us a nice testimonial. So we've got these layers: descriptive, what really happened; perception, what the customer thinks about what happened; and outcome, what they do based on their perception. Can I tell you what mystery shopper is really good at? Really good at helping you get at descriptive metrics. What really happened? Because what happens in companies is they hope things happen a certain way, or they think things happen a certain way, and then they conduct a mystery shopper and they're like, oh my gosh, is that what really happens? And it's like, yeah, it gives you this kind of descriptive insight. And I will say this, I think people working in companies, Gabe, have very good intentions. I'm a big believer that we all have good intentions. but sometimes those good intentions don't translate necessarily into good outcomes. We have to literally see what people are really going through, for example.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. So, Daniel, there's a question here that I think is interesting, and it relates to your story about the hotel in Singapore and the service values. Cheryl asks, how did the company incentivize employees to adopt these new behaviors? Was there a recognition program? So, would love to hear your thoughts on either that example specifically or on sort of the role of incentivizing an employee recognition
Sure,
in
of
this.
course, absolutely. They did it the smart way. They didn't use financial incentives. I think it's such a mistake to use financial incentives. I don't pay my people to be good to customers. The moment I start paying people, then I'm creating what's called economic norms. What they got really good at are what are called social norms. They built the culture around people like us do things like this. This is what's important to us. Now, they had a lot of great informal rewards, internal recognition programs, awards, lunch with the CEO, sharing compliment letters, but money was not a factor. And I think that really matters. The moment you start to put money behind this, I think you're going to drive behaviors for the wrong reasons. And that's a slippery slope. I hope that
Mm.
answers that question, Gabe.
Yeah, great question, Cheryl. Keep the questions coming. I see there's some great dialogue that's happening in the comments right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So Daniel, I think you sort of alluded to this a little bit, but I would like to dive in a little deeper. For those who have, they've stood up a VOC program,
Yeah.
they're doing touch point surveys or, something of that nature. They're doing some customer journey mapping work. Talk about how you've seen mystery shopping fit in these existing insights efforts, and why should an organization invest in a program like mystery shopping?
It makes perfect sense. Let me do the kind of explanation first, and then I'll give you some very specific examples of how people did this. Here's the expression I use. When I look at the full suite of customer insight programs available to me, all the methodologies and all the possibilities, I like to say a house has many windows. A house has many windows. And the more windows we have, the more light shines in. Most people I know want more light coming into their house. So, what does VOC do for us? Now, VOC, I always think of asking a real customer. Well, it helps us identify what really matters to customers because, as we all know, not every journey has equal weight in the customer's mind, and not every touch point along the journey has equal weight in a customer's mind. VOC helps us uncover that. We also use VOC to help us improve and innovate experiences. And many times this is done with customers. So, for example, in journey mapping, as we know, most consultants will recommend you bring real customers into your journey mapping sessions. You co-create these journeys, you discuss these journeys with them. And I think it's the same with human-centered design. One of my favorite expressions in human-centered design is we're not creating solutions for customers, we're creating solutions with customers. So VOC has absolutely so much importance in letting that light shine in our house of many windows. But now can I talk about Mystery Shopper? Because Mystery Shopper is a different set of windows. It does slightly different things for you. I look at it this way. Mystery Shopper helps me learn what do customers really go through when they interact with us. And it's a science experiment. Because the beauty of what you do with Mystery Shopper, and then I'm going to give you a very specific example. You decide what you want to learn. You decide it up front. Let me give an example now. We worked with an airline in India. And what triggered their mystery shopper was they got a lot of complaints, or they felt it was a lot of complaints from customers, real customers, about how overweight luggage situations were being handled. Apparently, it was different for different customers. There didn't seem to be any standardization in how overweight luggages were handled. So what we did is this, and I know you're going to find this incredible, but here we go. We hired about 100 different flyers, and we taught them how to overpack their luggage. We told them exactly how many kg or pounds to overpack their luggage. And then we literally booked them in flights from Delhi to Bangalore, from Bangalore to Mumbai, Mumbai to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we literally studied only that complaint because the client said, this is the science experiment we want to find out. Do we have a standardized approach to how we're doing this? Or do we have quite a variety or variability in the approach? we learned a couple things. Number one, massive amount of variability in the approach. So no wonder people were complaining. We really uncovered that there was no standard way of handling it. Can I tell you the second thing that came up in this mystery shopper that nobody had thought to look for, but this always happens in a good mystery shopper program? We always interview our mystery shoppers after they go through whatever their scenario is. We actually talk to them on the phone or by email or whatever. And here's what the mystery shoppers started to tell us. They said, Dan, when I went to the airport, and I'm from Rajasthan, and in Rajasthan we have a certain kind of clothing that we wear. When I was wearing my local Rajasthani wear, I did not get as good a service as when I was wearing a Western suit. When I went and checked in the airport wearing a Western style dress, I actually got better service. So then we checked in with the other mystery shoppers. Yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah, that happened to me too. So when we met with the client, we didn't just present the findings on the overweight luggage with all the books. We also said, I think we picked up some biasness in the way customers are being treated and the way they dress.
That is fascinating. And I come back to what you said. You design what you want to learn. Perhaps VOC is pointing you towards an area where you want to learn more. But to
Yep.
your point, perhaps it can open up some unexpected avenues and some things that you may not have even thought to ask.
Yep.
So, Daniel, this is an interesting question because you talked about, on the subject of bias.
Right.
Jamil asked, how can we reduce personal bias when conducting mystery shopping? And I think that's a really interesting question. Is that on the part of the people who want to learn on the client side? Could that be bias on the client side? Could be where is the bias, and is there ways to alleviate that?
Let me say this. I think it's a fair question. Here you go. I think the common mistake we see with mystery shopper, let's just leap to the biggest common mistake, is people are using it as a quick and dirty form of voice of customer. They think send a mystery shopper in, then ask the mystery shopper what they think. That's a terrible way to execute mystery shopper because, first off, your mystery shopper is being paid to do this and they're acting out a script that was written for them. You don't need or want their opinion. I always tell people if you want to know the opinion of a real customer, ask a real customer. That's why we have VOC. That's why we have surveys and focus groups and all that. Here's what we always do with mystery shopper, and clients really expect this. They'll say, okay, Dan, we're going to hand you a 40 country mystery shopper, which we did for a client for about 8 years. But we need to know the way you're scoring in Hungary is the same way you're scoring in China or Indonesia or Mexico for that matter. So what we would do is we never let the mystery shoppers be the final scorekeepers. What the mystery shoppers would do is write down what happened to them. We ask for their qualitative feedback, but we always ask them list your qualitative feelings separately. And then our quality assurance people, our full-time people would actually listen to the calls, read the email transcripts, interview the mystery shopper, and do what's called calibration. So even before the program started, we would have already defined here are the quality standards we're looking for. Those of you who work in contact center or customer service, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We would have already come up and said, okay, here's the definition of empathy we'll be using for this program. In order to get a 3 for empathy, the person at the organization will say this. To get a 2 for empathy, the person will have said this. And to get a 1 for empathy, the person would have said that. The client would sign off on all these definitions and all these scores before the program would run. So again, we didn't leave the scoring to all the individuals because whoever brought this up with biasness, you're 100% right. You're not going to learn much by asking a bunch of random people to tell you what they think, especially when they're being paid to do it. And that's something else I need to point out. Sometimes it's hard to get mystery shoppers because a lot of people have full-time jobs. That's why you often get students or housewives. And that's where clients will say, we don't really want the opinions of students. We don't really want the opinions of housewives. These aren't the people we're really serving. And that's where we say, not to worry, they're not the scorer. They're executing the script. To be a good mystery shopper, you have to be a good actor. You have to be able to think on your feet. We found that people who could act were the best mystery shoppers because they could turn on the fly if something in the scenario changed a little bit. But our people, our quality assurance people did the scoring. I hope that answers that particular question about bias because I agree with you there.
Yeah, yeah, that is great. Great question as well. Want to bring in a question from Faraz, who
Mm,
asks, what is the best way to communicate or report mystery shopping results to employees who got mystery shopped? So,
Yeah.
we've talked about sort of that executive reporting.
Yeah.
Is there a way to communicate this to the front line, and what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my thoughts are please don't use mystery shopper at the individual level. It's meant to be a group or team exercise. It's not meant to be an individual exercise. And let me tell you why. Let's say a mystery shopper is testing your email correspondence team, something we do a lot. Well, the way mystery shopper works is not every agent or customer service officer in the team is going to have a chance to show their stuff. That's what I call it. If I have 20 people in the team and only 4 of them end up encountering a mystery shopper email, then I haven't given 16 other people a chance to show their stuff. So why am I going to nag the 4 people on the individual performance of the mystery shopper that they got? The only time I ever bring up an individual mystery shopper to an individual is if there's something really remarkably amazing and I want to pat them on the back, or there's something really remarkably scary, like using vulgarity or something that I need to nip in the bud. But otherwise, I do not take mystery shopper down to the individual level because by definition, you don't get to do everybody. So it's not fair to the entire team. Does that help with that question? It's a good one, by the way.
Yeah, really, really great question for us, Daniel. I think your response makes a lot of sense. So,
Mm,
I want to talk a little bit more about some examples of success. You've shared some really compelling examples, and I think one of the ways that folks learn is we can learn about different examples from across industries. So, wondering if you have some other examples that you can share of successful program implementation.
I do. First off, thanks for letting me share the one that came from complaints. And you were 100% right to say people sometimes look at their VOC and say, let's do a science experiment and test only that. Let's do 100 calls only for that. So I think that's the beauty of mystery shopper. I want to give you some they're funny, but I hope they're funny in the right way. Here we go. By the way, I still sweat bullets when I think about it, but these are all old. All right. We did a kind of a full gigantic mystery shopper for Microsoft many years ago, and multi-countries, super complex, very interesting. Whenever we would start off on a mystery shopper, now they wanted to test calls, emails, and chats and a few processes. We always like to test and make sure things work the way people think they're going to work. So we had people writing emails in Chinese to go to the Microsoft China team, and we had folks writing emails in English to go to the US team. Well, my QA person came to me about 3 or 4 days after the program started and said, Dan, we haven't gotten one reply to the Chinese emails. I said, not one? That's weird. Their promised response time is like 24 hours, isn't it? And they said, yeah, weird, right? I said, not to worry. So I called the client, really nice guy. And I said, hey, Brett, we're not getting any email responses from China. He said, let me check. Here's what happened. He came back and said, oh my gosh, somebody flipped a setting in our web server and our Chinese emails are all going to the US. And our US emails are all going to China. And nobody was doing anything with them. They were just landing in people's email boxes. So what he actually said to us is, Dan, we're so happy we hired you guys to do Mystery Shopper because the program hasn't even really officially started. And you already fixed something that was kind of bad. So I said, yeah, but because web servers, these things change, Gabe. Yeah. So that's one story. Let me give you another one. We were testing a telecom and they asked us to use their IVR. Now, if you're familiar with an IVR, it's when you call in and it says, please press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And one of the scenarios we had to press 1, 2, 4, but every time we pressed 1, 2, 4, it hung up on us. So the QA person came to me, Dan, it's hanging up on us. I said, let me check with the client. Now, in this case, the client ignored us. There was no response to any of this. So literally 3 months go by, and now I'm sitting in this gigantic boardroom in this fancy office tower in some major capital city, presenting to the CEO. And when we got to that particular scenario, I had to say, by the way, whenever a customer calls or asks or wants to find out about this particular service, they get hung up on. And then the CEO said, no, that's not possible. And I said, oh, actually, it is possible, and it really happened. And then he said, no, that's not possible. And they had one of those fancy speaker phones, those like robot-y looking ones on the conference table. And he told his VP of customer service, try right now. Now, here I am sitting at the table. My feet are in my shoes, curling like this. Sweat is streaming down my back. Here we go. Press 1, press 2, press 4. Guess what happened, Gabe? Hung up.
I hope it hung up. For your sake, I hope it
The
hung up.
whole room went silent. And the point I had to make here was, thank God, by the way, I think I aged 5 years in that meeting. But basically, you said, you hope things work a certain way, you think things work a certain way, but actually, if nobody's really on top of this on a regular basis, you'd be amazed at how often things change, and nobody catches it. It's not as obvious as people think. So, can I give you one more that's non-techie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right,
absolutely.
Non-techie. Let's go to Australia. We're working with a university. For some reason, we work with a lot of universities. They have a big customer service team. And they said to us, okay, one of our stakeholders are parents, because obviously parents are big influencers as to which university the child's going to go to. And we would like you to test our scholarship options. So we taught our mystery shoppers the script. They get the script, they role play the script, and they would call in and say something like this: hi, I'm so-and-so. My son or daughter would be perfect for your scholarship. Can you please tell me more about the scholarship? Because I'd really like to take advantage of it. And every single call, guess what the agent would say? It's all on the website. It's all on the website. And by the way, I call that Tai Chi. The healthy, in the park? We call that Tai Chi because you're Tai Chiing the customer away. You're just Tai Chi them away. And it happened every single time. And the mystery shoppers would actually say, because we had the recordings, they would say, you mean you can't help me? Or you can't? No, it's all on the website. Well, come later on when we're presenting. Now, now we're not in technology. Now we're in management philosophy. The head of the center said we were trying to be more efficient and more digital. We thought we were doing the right thing. And then they laughed, Tai Chiing customers. I said, yeah, you're Tai Chiing customers. And guess what they stopped doing? Because of the mystery shopper, they stopped Tai Chiing customers. They help with the scholarship, and then they say, if you want to learn more. They would have never picked up on that if somebody from the outside world hadn't said, how come you keep doing that to all these parents that want a scholarship from you?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun example.
That is fascinating. That's really interesting. I love Tai Chi. So Daniel, we mentioned before, you've got a background in finance, kind of how you came up. And so, like all good CX pros, I know that you were attuned to this question of ROI and return on investment. So, it strikes me that these programs are not inexpensive endeavors. So would love to learn a little bit more about what you consider to be the success factors for a mystery shopping program. And if you're pitching this, if you're a CX pro is trying to pitch this to your, your executive team, how do you prepare yourself to answer those inevitable questions that are going to come around ROI?
I think the very first question you ask yourself for any mystery shopper is this one: what do I want to learn? What is my subject of interest? Once you pick your subject of interest, then your ROI flows from that. Can I give a couple of examples?
Yep.
Well, first off, let's go back to the hotel, the one with the CX vision. They had no problem putting the budget together for this because they said, we believe in our CX vision. We believe it's a differentiator. We believe it helps our customers choose us over our competitors, literally on both sides of us. And we just want to make sure it's being brought to life, because you can have all the great CX vision on earth, but if we can't prove it's being brought to life. So for them, ROI was a zero issue. Let me give you a completely different case. Let's say you're a company in the UK, and what I notice is happening a lot in the UK in the financial industry is there's a lot of training going on around vulnerable customers. Now, maybe that's true in the US. I'm not 100% sure. I have more exposure these days in the Europe since I'm in Germany. But basically, the company will say, you know what, Dan, we're rolling out a vulnerable customer training program. We would like our people to be more sensitive to, be more aware of. And of course, there's regulatory compliance as well. If the folks that give us banking licenses find out we're taking advantage of older people or people who may not have all their mental faculties, we can actually have our banking license pulled. So here's what they did. They picked a provider, a really good provider, to teach them vulnerable customer stuff. And after they were done, they said, we want to see how successful this training was. Could you please do a mystery shopper? And we will evaluate the success of the training initiative. Now, that's a totally different ROI, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's them saying we want to be doing the right thing for our customers. And obviously, we want to make sure we're in regulatory compliance. Does that help a bit, Gabe? How it all is
Absolutely.
different.
And I'd love to hear from our viewers too. You all have been providing such great comments and such great questions. So if this is spurring or sparking any insights from you, would love to hear it. If it's spurring or sparking any questions from you, would love to hear those too. So Daniel, that's great. And I know that it's helpful. I think it would be helpful for CX professionals to be aware if they're going to do something like this, especially for the first time implementing a program like this. There are always going to be some potential blind spots. So let's try to save some people some pain for this next question. What are some of the common pitfalls that you have
Oh,
seen?
yeah,
And
yeah,
most
yeah.
importantly, how can we avoid them?
Yeah, I think it's a really fair question. I think the first thing is when I hear people say they don't like Mystery Shopper, it's usually because it was badly done. Just look at Mystery Shopper as a tool. As we all know, a tool can be used well or used badly. Please don't blame the tool, blame the implementation. So for those folks who have had bad experiences, I feel your pain. I've seen them. But it's helpful to step back and say, okay, maybe I just had a bad experience with it and I didn't use it well. I think the first lesson we picked up on is clients have to be willing to hear bad news. Now, those of you in the CX world and CCXPs out there, when you've got your metrics and you have to give people bad news, we know how hard that can be. Let me give you a real story for us. We got picked by a post office in a certain country to mystery shop. And they were still using letters and correspondence. And they said, that's one of the channels we want to test. We want your mystery shoppers to actually drop letters in the post box, and we're going to track that and see how it goes. Well, what actually happened is we dropped all the letters in the post box. We never got one reply. We probably dropped 600 letters. We never got one reply. Now, again, I did try and communicate, but it fell on deaf ears. And when the program was again being presented, we were like, well, on your letter channel, we don't know what's going on. Do you know what they said? Your mystery shopper screwed up. It must be you. It can't possibly be us. The CEO absolutely blamed us for not knowing how to put 600 letters in the letterbox, and we were never hired by them again. And that's just a classic. So can I tell you what really happens in real life when we launch a mystery shopper program? Boy, I'm giving you all sorts of insights.
I
Giddy
think
here.
this is great. This is the real world stuff that I think people
All
want to
right, here's
understand.
the real world stuff. Marcus and I, my colleague, will look at each other after the first week, or I'll go into his office, or he'll come to my office, or now we go on Zoom or whatever, and I'll say, Marcus, what are the results like? What are the first 10 interactions score out like? And he's like, not good. And I'm like, oh no. Because the moment you hear the first ones are not scoring out well, you're like, oh no. But I know that sounds really funny and I shouldn't be telling you that. But people don't take this bad news very well in many cases. And I don't see why you would launch a mystery shopper program if you're not ready just to say, give it to me, tell me how it is, because I know what my job is to go fix it, not to blame you because you don't know how to put letters in a post box. So I think that's probably the first classic mistake that we see. The second classic mistake I probably already alluded to, and one of your viewers brought it up. Don't use it as a quick and dirty form of voice of customer. Mystery shoppers are not real customers. They're being paid to execute a script. So asking a mystery shopper how they found their visit to the mattress store, that's just going to get you a whole ton of unbiased data that's going to be hard to actually action or work with. I think that's another common problem. And I'd say the third problem, and again, I'm probably repeating, is resist the urge to run a program internally. There's just way too much political baggage going on when you start having the service quality person mystery shop or the marketing head starts to mystery shop. I remember in my days of running centers back in LA, now and then, one of the marketing people would Tess call us, and I would always roll my eyes the next day when he or she came in and had to give me their long, painful story. I would literally turn around and put some violin music on the CD player, and I'd say, wait, let me light a couple candles and dim the lights because this story deserves much sadness and crying. Now, I probably sound a little bit cynical there, but you had one call, and this is how you feel about one call. Whereas out there
Right.
on the floor right now, these guys are taking 100,000 calls. So can we please put this in context a little bit? So
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine a big part of what you have learned over the years is around setting proper expectations at the outset to try to avoid some of these, hurt feelings, or things of that nature, or being blamed and all of that.
well,
Yeah,
you lead me to another thought, which I think you and I chatted about separately a couple of weeks ago, which is it can be fun to try and spot the mystery shopper. When someone says, our people are always trying to spot the mystery shopper, I say, that's great. Let them keep trying to spot the mystery shopper. Maybe that means they're even doing a better job. I like that they're trying to spot the mystery shopper. I don't see that as a bad thing at all, for example. I actually see that as kind of a good thing. Why
yeah,
not? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. This is great. We've gotten some positive comments that have come in. This individual said, I use mystery shopping and service in my own company periodically, which helps
Yeah.
us improve and field pain points of the
Yeah.
customers to improve ongoing processes. Faraz said, it's still the most powerful method to measure service standards, identify areas of improvement, train coach employees, and reward top performance. So that's fantastic. Daniel, I got to say thank you for your passion, your insight around this topic, the value that you are bringing to viewers, and to fellow CX professionals around the world. And want to say to our viewers, if you want to learn more about Daniel, you
Oh,
can do so at his website, omnitouchinternational.com. Also mentioned that Daniel is a recognized training provider. If you're seeking quality CX training providers for your own organization, be sure to visit our website, cxpa.org/recognized trainers. You can learn more. And there's been so many comments that have come in, Daniel. There may have been one or two that I missed. If there's a question that you had for Daniel, I'm sure that we'll make an effort to follow up with you in the comments afterwards. Daniel,
sure.
thank you so much for sharing. This has been a really enlightening and fun conversation to have.
It's a fun activity, believe me. You learn a lot and you earn every gray hair. So, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, thank you, Daniel.
you're welcome.
Okay, we hope that you are going to join us back here next week on March 29th. We're going to welcome our friends at Walker for our next installment of the CX Leadership Series. If you are interested in learning tips and strategies from established CX leaders to help your CX program gain visibility and build a reputation as a valuable component to your company's strategy, we hope that you're going to join us here on LinkedIn on March 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, take care, everyone.